You know that feeling when the global landscape seems to be constantly shifting? Like the pieces on the chessboard just keep rearranging themselves.
Oh, absolutely. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
Exactly.
Well,
Well, today we're going to try and cut through some of that noise. We're doing a deep dive into a really complex scenario, Vladimir Putin's foreign policy and the big ripple effects of international sanctions.
right. And our mission really is to sift through a whole stack of sources. We've gathered policy papers, economic reports, even some social media stuff to get at the core dynamics.
Yeah, we want to understand what's really driving things.
We'll look at how Putin's approach has evolved, how these Western sanctions actually work, what their impact has been, and, the surprising ways global supply chains and even things here at home are being affected.
So you, listening, should get a much clearer picture of what's actually happening on this global stage. Ready to jump in.
Let's do it. What's really striking about Putin is just how long he's been in power. Since 2000, basically, with that little swap in the middle, but continuously since 2012.
Right, a long time.
And while the tactics change, there's this remarkable consistency in his foreign policy vision. It's definitely a long game he's playing.
You can really see that long game early on, can't you? Like back in 2007, challenging that U.S. missile shield in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He even sort of hinted that Russian nukes might need new targets in Europe. That's pretty direct.
It was. And he offered alternatives, didn't he? Like sharing that old Soviet radar in Azerbaijan.
Yeah. Instead of new systems in the Czech Republic or Poland, or maybe interceptors in Iraq or Turkey, it was like strategic maneuvering right from the start.
Definitely a chess move. And it led to that big symbolic step, the 2007 moratorium on the Conventional Armed Forces in Europe Treaty, the CFE Treaty.
Why did he do that again?
He argued there was an imbalance because the newer NATO members hadn't signed on. So by December 2007, Russia just suspended its participation.
And the U.S. reaction.
Regret, naturally. They pointed out Russia still had the biggest conventional forces in Europe. It was a clear pushback against the post-Cold War setup.
And this wasn't just about treaties, was it? Relations with the UK also got pretty frosty around then.
Yeah, deteriorated steadily from the mid-2000s. Things like granting asylum to Berezovsky. That didn't help.
And that law restricting foreign funding for NGOs.
Right, 2006, that shut down a lot of groups. But the real trigger, the flashpoint, was the Litvinenko poisoning in 2006.
Ah, yes.
That led to diplomats being expelled, counterterrorism cooperation getting suspended. Russia even told the British Council to stop operating, a major breakdown.
So all this fits into that larger idea of Russia wanting a sphere of influence,
That's
right?
exactly. And it's fascinating how they use the Kosovo precedent. The argument for self-determination to justify things like annexing Crimea or backing breakaway regions in Georgia and Moldova.
And other countries noticed. Germany in 2014 was worried about Putin trying to gain influence in the Balkans.
Yeah, Serbia, Macedonia, Albania, Bosnia. They saw it as a pattern, a well-established playbook, really.
But it wasn't all confrontation with the West. He was also building bridges elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Strengthening ties with China, India, the BRIC countries, annual defense reviews with India, the friendship treaty with China, plus that huge oil pipeline to China. Very pragmatic moves.
And the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, what role does that play?
It's framed as mutual security cooperation. Putin always denied it was an anti-NATO bloc, but then, in 2007, Russia started sending strategic bombers on long-range patrols again, major naval exercises.
Interesting message.
Pretty clearly. Russian media loved it, presented it as Russia being strong again, and then their support for North Korea, balancing the U.S., even providing a new internet link. With Iran, it's been a bit up and down, but Russia finished the Bushehr nuclear plant, consistently opposed Western sanctions. Putin still calls Iran a partner, even with the nuclear concerns.
And this sphere of influence idea has led to actual conflict, of course. Georgia in 2008.
Right. Putin's line was basically, if Georgia had just treated Abkhazia and South Ossetia with respect, they could have kept them. Then you have Moldova, the Baltic states' NATO members, always watching Russia warily.
Like Poland planning those observation towers near Kaliningrad because of those Iskander missile reports.
High.
High tensions.
Very high. And Ukraine, of course, is absolutely central to this whole long game.
Going way back, right. Supporting Yanukovych in 2004.
Which was widely seen as interference, yeah. Then challenging Ukraine's territorial integrity in 2008. Fast forward to December 2022, Putin says his goal is to unite the Russian people.
And most recently, questioning Zelensky's legitimacy based on term limits.
Right, citing one article of the Constitution, while Ukraine's parliament speaker immediately countered with another, saying the president stays in power during wartime until new elections are possible. It's a constant information war alongside everything else.
Okay, so that sets the stage for Putin's long-term strategy. Let's pivot to the Western response to sanctions. What's the basic idea behind them?
Well, the intent is usually to achieve foreign policy goals or, punish breaches of international law. After the 2022 invasion, the U.S. and its allies rolled out these really significant economic measures.
Aiming to do what exactly?
To deter, punish, and basically reduce Russia's ability to fund the war, to export and import key goods.
And how do they work? You mentioned 3 pillars.
Yeah, broadly speaking, first, you have financial sanctions. Things like kicking major Russian banks off SWIFT, that's the main messaging system banks use globally.
Okay.
Freezing assets of banks, companies, key individuals close to the Kremlin, and restricting their ability to borrow money or even hold large deposits outside Russia. It's like tightening a financial noose.
Makes sense. What's the second pillar?
Trade and energy sanctions. This is where you see the EU banning Russian coal and oil, aiming to cut gas dependency too. The G7 put that price cap on Russian crude oil, $60 a barrel, and other petroleum products,
Right.
plus bans on exporting things like oil refining tech to Russia or investing in their energy sector, and closing airspace, ports, roads to Russian carriers, banning imports from Russia, steel, wood, seafood, gold. A pretty wide net.
Okay, financial, trade, and energy. What's the third?
Technology sanctions. This one's really crucial. It's an expanded ban on dual-use goods.
Things that have both civilian and military uses.
Exactly. Advanced computer chips, special chemicals, things needed for modern weapons. So they restricted exports of these products and tech to Russia, even blocking sales of foreign-made goods if they use U.S. technology.
And beyond governments, companies acted too.
Oh, yeah. Over 1,000 multinationals, BP, Shell, Coke, Starbucks, big names pulled out or suspended operations. Partly PR, partly ESG risks, but definitely pushed along by government policies. Kind of spontaneous sanctions.
Now, you mentioned a key distinction. Primary versus secondary sanctions. Can you break that down? It sounds important.
It really is key to understanding the reach. So primary sanctions apply to people and companies inside the country issuing the sanctions. If you're American or a U.S. company or use the U.S. financial system, you have to comply with U.S. primary sanctions. Penalties are serious, big fines, even jail time.
Okay, that's clear. What about secondary sanctions?
Secondary sanctions are the ones with global teeth. They target foreign companies or individuals, say, a company in a third country, if they do business with a country under U.S. primary sanctions, like Russia or Iran.
Ah, so it extends the reach beyond U.S. borders.
Massively. The goal is to boost the primary sanctions, protect U.S. security interests globally. If a foreign bank deals with a sanctioned Russian entity, the U.S. might say, okay, you can't access the U.S. financial system anymore, or no U.S. company can do business with you.
Wow. Examples?
Well, the U.S. used them against that Chinese bank, Bank of Dandong, for helping North Korea launder money. And they've been a big tool regarding Iran. We've even heard U.S. senators recently talking about hitting countries still buying Russian energy with secondary sanctions. It's a powerful and controversial lever.
So you have these unprecedented sanctions. But did they actually stop the invasion in 2022?
No. Plain and simple, they didn't deter the invasion, despite being incredibly comprehensive.
And Putin's reaction?
He called them illegal, akin to a declaration of war. If anything, it seemed to harden Russia's stance.
It feels a bit like we've been here before, doesn't it? The idea that just sending more weapons might not lead to victory, but maybe just slows down defeat.
There is that depressing sense of Groundhog Day, as one source put it. And you had people like Tulsi Gabbard arguing back in February 2022 that sanctions just don't work and mainly hurt ordinary Americans, suggesting the focus wasn't really on U.S. interests.
Right, and sources suggest sanctions since 2014 haven't really changed Putin's core calculations anyway.
They not appeared remotely likely to, according to one analysis. Russia seems dug in for a long attritional war. The strategy looks like trying to bleed Ukraine and its Western sponsors dry financially.
Which brings us to peace talks. Why have they consistently failed? What's the fundamental roadblock?
The core impasse, based on our sources, seems to be the Western push for Russian concessions without requiring similar concessions from Ukraine. And the one Russian demand that apparently will not change is that Ukraine stays out of NATO.
So the peace terms are just miles apart.
Completely. Ukraine's position under Zelensky is no direct talks with Putin. He signed a decree making it impossible. His conditions are tough, just punishment for Russia. restoring all territory, security guarantees, compensation, war crimes trials. Polls show Ukrainians strongly oppose giving up land.
And Russia's terms.
They'll only talk if Ukraine accepts Russian sovereignty over the annexed regions. Putin's terms from June 2024 were even tougher. Hand over all of those provinces, even parts Russia doesn't control. Ukraine becomes neutral, ditches NATO plans, no nukes, protects Russian speakers, lifts sanctions, and undergoes demilitarization and denazification.
Zelensky compared that to Hitler's ultimatums, didn't he?
He did. It shows just how vast the gap is.
And looking ahead, what's the U.S. thinking, say, for 2025?
Well, we saw that statement from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in February 2025. He called restoring Ukraine's pre-2014 borders unrealistic, something that would just prolong the war.
And NATO membership for Ukraine.
Also not seen as a realistic outcome of any negotiation, according to him. The emphasis seems to be shifting. The U.S. expects Europe to step up more with aid, while America focuses on China and its own security. No U.S. peacekeepers. A definite shift.
So these huge geopolitical events, they obviously have massive economic consequences that ripple outwards, right?
Absolutely undeniable. They make global supply chain problems worse. We saw that example of Thomson Plastics' rising energy costs slash their profits by 2/3. That's a huge impact.
And it hits us, the consumers, too. That stat about gas prices is wild. Every penny increase costing consumers over $1 billion annually.
Yeah, it forces businesses to either eat the cost, which is hard, or pass it on as higher prices. And it's not just fuel. Think about nickel for batteries. Russia's a big producer. Or materials for semiconductors. Neon, palladium, germanium. Russia and Ukraine are huge suppliers. It affects everything from cars to computers.
And this ties into debates here at home, particularly around defense spending.
Definitely. The sources point out that between 2020 and 2024, over 54% of the Pentagon's $4.4 trillion discretionary budget went to military contractors. The top 5 got $771 billion.
All at the same time.
Right, you have military families on food stamps and reported plans to cut services for veterans. It raises serious questions about where the priorities lie.
And specific projects, like Trump's Golden Dome missile defense idea.
Experts called it a costly pipe dream, but for contractors, it's potentially a gold mine. You have the traditional defense giants lobbying hard, plus these newer tech firms like SpaceX, Palantir, and Dural coming in, often with a very hawkish stance. The concern is that special interests and big contracts might be driving strategy more than actual national security needs.
There's also a soft power dimension to all this, isn't there? Especially somewhere like Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's a fascinating contrast. The U.S. talks about values, freedom, democracy, increases military presence. But China is gaining ground by offering tangible things, infrastructure, education, economic tools.
And framing it differently.
Exactly. China talks about sovereignty, mutual respect, being reliable. It makes the U.S. approach sometimes seem, well, patchy in application or moralistic to leaders in that region. The U.S. struggles to show up early, often, and empathetically, as one source put it. It's a real battle for influence, fought with different weapons.
Lastly, let's touch on that situation between Russia and Azerbaijan. Some in the West see it as a chance to isolate Moscow more.
It's way more complex than that, though. It's tangled up in energy routes, regional power plays. Aligning too closely with Azerbaijan, which is backed by Turkey and seen as an alternative energy source, could actually backfire.
How so?
It risks damaging essential channels between the U.S. and Russia on really critical issues like Ukraine or arms control. Moscow still holds the military advantage there, and strong Western backing for Baku could provoke a major Russian reaction, destabilize the whole South Caucasus even further. You have to ask if picking a side in that specific dispute is worth potentially sacrificing broader strategic stability.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at Putin's long-term foreign policy, the mechanics and impact or lack thereof of Western sanctions, and how these global shifts affect everything from trade routes to alliances to even budgets here at home.
Yeah, you really see how interconnected everything is. Actions over here have unexpected consequences way over there.
So the final thought to leave you, our listener, with, maybe consider this. When we pursue what seem like clear foreign policy goals, like tough sanctions or military support, how often do we fully anticipate the complex web of unintended consequences?
Right. How do these actions reshape alliances, change domestic realities, maybe in ways we never expected? What are the real long-term costs and benefits? And maybe the biggest question, how do you even measure success when the whole global chessboard keeps shifting under your feet?